Well, hello, everyone. I am Will Driscoll with the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and we are continuing our hashtag Sports Mental Health Monday conversations throughout 2023. These conversations are all a part of the Youth Sports Mental Health and Wellness Alliance, formed in partnership with the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters, Cutler Wellness Programs, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame inductee Michael Kadire, and countless other youth sports stakeholders and collegiate athletic stakeholders here in Virginia. Our March focus is actually communication and how effective communication through all channels is vital to create and maintain a positive atmosphere for mental health and wellness. Today, we are going to dive into something that seems easy, but is often overlooked, and that is communication between parents and their athletes. We are joined by John Cunningham, who has two sons that have participated in sports at all levels. And John also serves on the board of the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation and has helped push this conversation forward through the programs and camps offered by the Youth Foundation. John, thanks for taking some time to join us today.
Well, thank you, Will. Happy to be on here. This is such an important topic. And as you mentioned, I got two kids that play sports, so very near and dear to me as well. So excited to talk to you.
Well, we're happy that you're here. And the one thing that I've really enjoyed about these conversations is the fact that we're bringing in everybody at all levels of sports, not just the athletes, but the coaches, the administrators, parents like yourself. And let's go ahead and kind of get it kicked off that way. At what point did you begin to include conversations around mental health with your two sons? We mentioned that you have two sons that play sports. At what point did the mental health side start coming into the conversation beyond just the physical preparation?
Well, I don't know if it was intentional, but I would say it was very early on. As you mentioned, I have two boys, one that plays soccer and now plays football as a kicker, very mental focused position, and the other plays baseball, which if you look at baseball, and he's been playing that since he's 6 years old, there is a huge mental component to it. So when they were really young, even 5, 6 years old, t-ball, coach's pitch, and, some of the very beginnings of soccer, and we played basketball, everything was about fun. So again, it wasn't intentional about, talking about mental health and what's the best thing to do, but we really just focus on, with both of our kids, just make sure they're having fun, that they were gaining some skills, that they're trying different things. I played a couple sports in high school, and naturally neither of my boys played the sports I played. So we wanted them to find their passions, enjoy what they're doing. And, if you can do that, then you at least start the good foundation. Now, as they've gotten older and as it's gotten more competitive, we talk about mental health a lot. And I think that's a big part of it. But I think it was just, again, from my experiences, making it fun was important for them early on, for them to, again, find their own passion and just love of the game, whatever it was.
It does seem that as we've gotten older, we realize that the fun part kind of phases out a little bit earlier than it used to. And so these conversations become much more important at an earlier age. What was and is currently still your approach in having these conversations with your sons?
Well, it's interesting because it really hasn't changed. One of the things that I say to my boys, and it's the last thing I say, so if they're getting out of the car or if I'm talking on the phone before a game, one of the things I used to always say is play loose, play fun. And again, just emphasizing that fun part, because I think you hit the nail on the head. As kids get a little bit older, it gets much more competitive. You kind of see the funnel in terms of kids dropping off. And so you get to the high school level, it's extremely competitive. And now I have one that's in college and it's even more competitive. So it becomes more and more job-like. And so you really got to rein in and kind of refocus them on making sure that they're having fun, that they're playing with energy, they're playing loose. They're not scared to make mistakes. We always, I talk a lot with my kids about making aggressive mistakes and having a short memory. If you made a mistake, forget about it and move on to the next play, next pitch. And that's easier said than done because, sports is very difficult and it can knock you down a lot. But I think that's been really helpful just to kind of rein them in and focus on the, why they're playing the sport, why they love it. And, again, practice can be fun. It can be a grind, but it can be fun. But really just enjoy the game for what it is. And I think as they've gotten older, those conversations have definitely changed. As I mentioned, I have one kid that's playing college baseball and a ton of pressure. You step up to the plate, all eyes are on you, and it's all about performing and putting up numbers. And so really just trying to help him at least just stay focused on the now, that pitch, that play. Don't worry about what happened the week before. Don't worry about what happened to that bat before, what's going to happen in the future. Just be present. And I think that's made a big difference. My other kid who plays soccer and kicks for football, as a kicker, that's a stressful position. It's stressful for mom and dad to watch. But just staying balanced and just staying focused on what do you got to do? Just work on your mechanics and swing right through it with your leg. And those are the kind of things I think that have helped. And last but not least, after the game, just give them a big hug. Give them a big hug and say, hey, I'm proud of you. That was fantastic. Or if they struggled, hey, you'll get it next time. If they didn't play, hey, just keep working on things that you can control. Keep working hard in practice. And so I think, giving the hug, and my wife, who didn't grow up in a sports family, has become a huge baseball fan, soccer, and now football. So, it comes from both of us.
Were there ever any challenges or barriers in approaching these conversations? And if there were, how were you able to get over those challenges, barriers, and maybe offer advice to parents that might be going through some of the same issues?
Well, I think it's fair to say that almost every kid at some point or not along the way will say, that's just mom and dad. You can be giving them fantastic advice. And if it comes from someone else, they listen. And if it comes from mom and dad, it's like, okay, you're just, so I think, yes, the short answer is I've reached out to people I know in the community. So it could be other coaches. It could be other family members. So if, again, if they're struggling with something or things aren't, they're dealing with some adversity, get a different perspective, get a different point of view. We've been, blessed to have, some good contacts in this community, both from a coaches and from players standpoint. Let them talk to your kids if they're really struggling with something, especially as they get older into the high school and college ranks. Someone who's been there, done that can give them, hey, I was in your shoes and this is how I dealt with it. Sometimes goes a lot further than mom and dad, and mom and dad just keep staying supportive. So without question, we've had to deal with it, but I think finding those outside resources, and again, it can be from a number of different angles, coach, family member, athlete, teacher, whatever the case may be, that can give your son or daughter some guidance that's not coming straight from mom and dad.
It really is a stronger together type of approach. And that kind of goes back to how we formed this alliance is we realize that we don't have all the answers individually, but collectively, all of the stakeholders in sports here in Virginia, we can brainstorm and we can pool our resources and our knowledge. Yeah. And so it's really exciting to hear that that's an approach that you would recommend to other people. Understanding everyone is different. What are some signs that you would look for to make sure that your sons are in a good state of mind as they're preparing for a game or preparing for practice or even just preparing for a season or just overall?
Well, I think there's a couple things, especially if it's a game, you can tell if your son or daughter is nervous, and that's normal and that's to be expected. And I think you're going to, the more you can help them work through that so they don't run from it or hide from it. Again, baseball is one of those very unforgiving sports. Deal with it, deal with that emotion and kind of work through it. On the flip side, when you start to see, and I've seen this throughout my entire time with both boys, is when a kid makes a mistake and their first reaction is to look for mom and dad because they want to see mom and dad's reaction. Are mom and dad going to be upset? Are they going to either validate them and encourage them? And to me, that's always not a good sign, because they're worried about, outside influences, primarily their family, for acceptance. And so, I think if you are a parent, and trust me, my kids have told me to be quiet. My oldest, one time I used to, he'd, sometimes when he wasn't throwing strikes, I'd say, throw strikes. He's like, Dad, I'm trying to throw strikes. Stop saying that. And my soccer kid, he's like, Dad, you don't need a coach from the sideline. So I think that's a big part of it. You can recognize, when you see it from others, but sometimes just look within and be like, hey, I'm talking way too much. And I need to dial it back and let them work through it, let the coach deal with it. And then, as I mentioned, at the end of a game, whether they played well or they didn't play well, whether they lost or they won, just be proud of them. They're your kids, give them big hugs, give them high fives, pat on the backs. And, I think that goes a long ways versus, immediately talking about the game, immediately talking about something they could have done better. They know it. I played sports and I remember every mistake I made after the game, I would replay it over and over again in my head. So I didn't need another person to kind of reinforce that. So, be a good listener. If they do want to talk about it, great. But just, again, recognize that they're going to go through some tough stuff, and sometimes they just got to fight through it.
We sometimes want to assume that things are a certain way, especially when it comes to difficult conversations like this. And I think making yourself as the adult in the room, the parent, the coach, the administrator, available, and making sure that the athlete knows that those lines of communication are open is really important. And especially when it comes from the parents, because like you said, sometimes you have the athlete that's looking to the stands to see the parent's reaction. But if the parent makes it so that communication line is always open, then we might not run into some of the issues that we do sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. And as I mentioned, my oldest is in college now, and you always wonder how often they're going to call home, and are they just calling for money? And one of the great things that I've seen with my son is he'll call us sometimes 4 or 5 times a day. He'll call us heading to practice, coming back from practice, whether it's something academic related, and he feels comfortable. He feels that trust. Sometimes I just listen, and let him vent, and be that outlet for him. Sometimes, when he needs it, I'll give him some encouragement. And then other times, we'll talk about things and how to deal with it. So I think keeping that line of communication wide open where your kids feel confident and they can trust going to mom and dad, and you're not either going to give them a lecture or you're going to undermine whatever their concerns are. They're humans too, and sports can be tough. Sports can be really tough. So I think, especially the older they get, the more competitive they get. So just being available. And, it's been nice, at least for me and my wife, that we've been able to keep those lines of communications wide open, and our kids come to for stuff, when they're dealing with stuff, good or bad. And, I think that's a big key to, hopefully, if they move on and get out of sports, and they get in the working world, you're going to come into real challenges there too. And I think that's where, a lot of people talk about sports being a metaphor for life. I think absolutely your ability to kind of deal with stuff, communicate, and be effective and fight through tough times and celebrate good times is a big part of it. And so hopefully we're teaching them some good life lessons as well.
Well, the personal insight that you've provided and the relationship that you have and the communication tactics that you've implemented with your sons has been really important and really exciting to hear about. But let's talk a little bit about the work that you do as a board member with the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation. You've implemented this messaging as part of your programs and camps, and kind of give us a little bit of insight into what you've done and how you've been able to do it, and the response that you've seen from the people involved, either the campers or other board members or community partners that you have at the Youth Foundation.
Well, at Hampton Roads Youth Foundation, it's just been an amazing organization started by Vernon Lee and Carl Francis 26 years ago. They saw a need for free camps in the community on the peninsula. This is primarily focused at high school football players, but also younger football players. They grew up playing football. I actually played on the peninsula as well. And they wanted to do something that had an impact on the community. And at that point in time, they would bring back, ex-NFL players from this area. So it was really fantastic. So it really started with a camp, and then they started adding some things around it from a leadership standpoint. So now we, in conjunction with the camp, will do a leadership seminar that talks about a variety of different topics, mental health being one of them, what kind of opportunities in the professional sports world. And, so that'll go along with the camp. And then we're moving forward with Dr. Orr out of Hampton University, has done a series of again, on this topic, mental health related discussions, where he'll bring in Hampton University students, student athletes, to actually talk to student athletes from Phoebus High School. And he's done a series of seminars. We want to grow that and expand it beyond Phoebus. What we mentioned about the leadership seminar, we'll still do the camp, but that's open to all Hampton Roads students. You don't have to be a student athlete, but all students. that, again, just continues to provide resources for this community that, I mean, we all love it. I went to high school here, but I've been here for 18 years. Carl and Vernon were born and raised here, and all the board members are very, very vested. That's what we love about what you're doing with the Youth Alliance. I mean, it's a perfect fit in terms of our involvement, because it's so needed. And if you look at a lot of these kids that got impacted by COVID, I think you and I have had conversations about this. You had a year and a half where kids weren't allowed to have an outlet, or in some cases is very limited. That has a huge impact, especially depending on the age, middle school, high school, even the younger kids. So we need to continue to keep our eyes on the community and the student athletes, and give them resources or outlets that allow them to have strong mental health. It's become such a strong and important topic, all the way from the Kevin Loves in the professional world to the Kyle guys in the college and NBA. You see them speaking out more. Kids right now really don't have much of a voice. In my day, it used to be, if you're anxious, don't say anything or else you're not going to play. And so now I think, giving them a forum to kind of deal with real life stuff, especially out on the field and in the court, where they can have fun and not worry about some of the, the mental health challenges, or at least giving them some resources that they can go to if they do. So
it's still a new kind of approach to mental health and wellness for student athletes, youth and student athletes. We're still at the point where we're scratching the surface right now, and we're trying to really figure out what works and how we can really activate it through these programs that you've done through the Youth Foundation. What sort of successes have you seen?
Oh, it's been fantastic. There's some real life discussions between whether they're college athletes or professional athletes, talking directly to high school student athletes. So it's pretty close to peer, but it's a peer that they would really value the opinion of. And so it has an impact. And I think this goes back to, if you can, help a couple kids along the way, that's fantastic. Obviously, you want to help as many as you can. But if you're helping a couple of kids along the way, whether that's helping them realize the importance of education, academics. So, again, if they are, have the God-given ability to play at the next level, well, you got to have the grades to go with that. They come from all kinds of homes that, some have dual parents, some have one parent, some are living with, other family members. So that puts some stress on their lives. So again, having those real life conversations where they know, hey, they're not alone. You got a lot of people that have gone through this, and, there's resources like the Youth Alliance, like the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation, that really are geared towards making a difference and helping them. And what I think what we want to do moving forward is bring that conversation and those resources so they're more available. So helping coaches understand, identify what, if you see certain things within your team or a certain person, how you can deal with that. And I've seen some great examples here in Hampton Roads where kids have, either, for a variety of reasons, maybe taken a right or a left where they should have gone straight. And a coach has helped them through that and brought them back on course. And now they're thriving. And those are the types of things that, we love this community. It's got a well-known reputation for great athletes, but those are the grassroots things I think organizations like the Youth Alliance and what we're doing can really help take that to the next level. So those conversations are happening more, not less. And again, it has, an impact, even if it's just a couple kids or 500 kids or 5,000 kids, it's gonna be worthwhile.
The end of the day, it's really all about creating the positive sports experience. I run the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, but you want to also give every kid an opportunity to be their best, whether that's in sports or whether that's in life. But there's so much good that can come from sports. And just hearing about that, I think that your organization is on the right track. The communication that you've kind of given us an insight into today, it helps keep your student athletes on the right track. And John, I just want to thank you again for taking some time to join us today, share that insight and perspective, and also as a community partner with the Hampton Roads Sports Foundation and our alliance here, the Youth Sports Mental Health and Wellness Alliance. So thanks again for joining us today.
Well, thank you. We're excited to be part of the Alliance. And like I said, this is a very important and relevant topic, and love everything that you guys are doing to help bringing more awareness to it, but also, some resources to it. So thank you again for letting me join you.
Great. We appreciate that, John. And again, for those who will be watching, this conversation is featured as part of our hashtag Sports Mental Health Monday social media campaign. Our focus for the month of March is communication. And throughout 2023, we will be sharing content and programs featuring our Alliance partners. Weekly posts can be found on the Hall of Fame social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, as well as our website, vasportshof.com. Be on the lookout for more hashtag Sports Mental Health Monday throughout 2023. And thanks again for following along.